Welcome everybody to the Ever Evolving Truth. My name is Jeff, and we have a wonderful show for you here today. We're going to be talking about the Flat Earth movement. First and foremost, though, you're going to hear some different voices here today. Some of our regulars are very, very ill. We believe they have COVID, so if you're out there, wish them a quick recovery. Leah's not going to be here today. She just recently got tested. Wags, who is our executive producer, has a very high fever. And her doctors believe that she has COVID as well. So we wish them a very quick recovery. We're certainly going to miss them, but we are lucky enough to have people that were able to fill in for them. And first is a very familiar voice, Abby Sterner. Welcome, Abby. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us today and being able to fill in for us on such short notice.
Absolutely.
We also have somewhat of a familiar guest. You heard his interview earlier this season, Mark Hopkins. How are you, Mark?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Always a wonderful guest you are. And a very special guest for us here today is, do you want us to call you Johnny Lust?
Sure, that's fine.
Johnny Lust, who is the drummer, let me make sure I get this right, drummer and vocalist for a band called Three Blind Mice.
Thank you.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir. We are
a
live classic rock band.
And I was able to listen to some of the video that you sent me. You did a very, very good rendition of what's the song?
Stairway.
Drawing a blank. Yeah, Stairway to Heaven.
I appreciate that. Thank you, sir. Very nice.
All of our favorite songs, I'm sure. So, if you're out west, you're doing some live shows right now, right?
Yes, we're playing in Kingman, Arizona, the 13th and 14th of this month.
Awesome. So if you are out in that area, go check them out. I'm personally longing for live music. I can't wait to go to a concert again in some way, shape, or form. I'm actually thinking about buying tickets to a live stream of a band that I caught at Firefly a couple of years ago.
Cool.
For $15, why not give it a try? I'm just that desperate for live music. So, like I said in the beginning, we have a very interesting show and what I'm sure is going to be an interesting discussion. Johnny, I have to thank you again because this is not an easy show to come on to, especially when you represent what most would consider the unpopular side of it. You're very brave. We've tried to get many people.
I just happened to be at the right place at the right time. I was in that Flat Earth group when you asked the question, and I was right there.
We're glad to have you.
We are. We get heated when we agree. So just a rule off the bat is no matter how heated this gets, it's nothing personal. We were talking to you before the show started, and you're a very nice guy, and I'm really looking forward to this discussion. So. I want to start off just by kind of giving you the floor. Like, I'm coming at this like I'm ignorant. Like, I feel like the whole flat Earth thing kind of disappeared for the longest time, and then the internet came around, and all of a sudden a bunch of people got together and started discussing the idea that maybe the Earth isn't round anymore. And I just want to kind of ask you, like, were you previously under the belief that the Earth was round, and then you just discovered some information?
Yeah, I'll put this really quick. Me being a rock and roller, all my friends, we tour around the world. We constantly touring around the world. So I'll start up with that. So being a rock and roller my whole life, and also a ufologist for decades, I became a flat earther about 4 or 5 years ago. I was actually going to a UFO convention. And my old guitar player from Creature, Trixie, called me and asked me about the flat Earth, and I had no idea what he was talking about. He sent me a video. The video that got me was a woman giving birth on a plane. The flight was from Taiwan to LAX, Los Angeles. 6 hours into the 19-hour flight, her water breaks, she gives birth. Now there's another passenger. They make an emergency landing, not in Honolulu, where one would expect, flying right over the Pacific. They emergency land in Anchorage, Alaska. So I'm thinking, well, how is that? On a globe map, it does not make any sense whatsoever. Anchorage is above Canada. So why would they do a 22-hour flight? This is all the research I found out. A 22-hour flight when they could just continue on to LAX, which is a 19-hour flight. And there you have it. But on a flat Earth map, Anchorage is on the way. And that's the video that started my whole plight. every day for like 4 to 5 years now. I've been researching this. And there you
So
go.
so every day you're passionate about it.
Pretty much.
And
It actually brought me closer back to God. Being in a rock and roll band, spinning out of control, and just basically, creating my own destiny, which is great, which is fine. But the whole flat Earth, it's really godly oriented. His creation, the firmament, the flat Earth, all of that stuff. Scripture. There's a lot of scripture in the Bible about it. And me being raised a Christian, anyways, from childhood, it just brought me back closer to my walk with God. So in hindsight, that's a good thing in a personal sense for me.
Johnny, I had a question regarding that real quick. Sorry, Jeff. So I feel like if you believed in a flat Earth concept, it kind of makes our reality smaller than the globe Earth and everything else that's entailed by the cosmos and stuff like that. Do you think that regardless of obviously you are a believer in the flat Earth theory, but do you think that for a lot of people what makes it attractive is that it does kind of shrink the world a little bit and get you closer to feeling like this is kind of it, and it's accessible, and I'm actually a part of it. Is that any part of it for the flat Earth community? Do you think?
Well, no. You touched base on a couple of things, and respectfully saying it's not a theory, it's a reality, and that's how I think. But what you said about it makes people, it's attractive to people. The attractiveness of let's face it, if we're on a spinning sphere at 1,000 miles an hour at the equator, when you go up to the axis point, supposedly axis point, there's going to be no gravity. I'll use that word, But so what are polar bears and penguins floating? No, it doesn't make sense. So the spin of the Earth is going to be less when you go up to the axis point. In other words, to answer your question, the attractiveness about it is if we believe we're a big part of this cosmos and stuff, that's an infinite, ongoing, ever expanding, we have no purpose, we have no meaning. But if we're smaller under God's creation, then our life means something. Do you see what I mean? And here's another thing. If we're expanding I'm 57, I just turned 57. All my life, Orion's Belt, the Big Dipper, all the constellations, they've been the same size. And we can see them every year. If the universe were expanding, it would have only been documented thousands of years ago, because it would have been it would be expanding for. I mean, I've been researching this. If you guys want, you can call me. I'll get in depth with you on a personal level and tell you more about it. And maybe I could I don't want to use the word convince you, just maybe remind you, I think is a better word.
I hear you. Mark, it looks like you were itching to say something there.
I got a rash.
Because of the itch.
I
Mark doesn't
understand.
usually have a rash, from what I understand, although I could be wrong.
I understand wanting to believe in something, things being simpler, and that's why people get into conspiracies, because it explains things. And but your first statement, Johnny, was you said you've traveled around the world. That was your
My
first
friends
sentence.
have toured around. Yeah, we tour around the world.
Around, not
Exactly.
across. You got to start saying across.
No, I know. As a flat
If you
earther,
want to be a flat earther.
as a flat earther, I say that now. Like I just played up in. I just said it again. I played
Up.
over in Ely,
There's no up.
Nevada, but I'm up in the mountains. But I'm over in Ely.
You don't go up. You go over.
Exactly.
You don't go around. You go across.
That's exactly correct.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're using the right vernacular.
Absolutely. Like if you're standing if you're standing still and you move forward, completely straight forward, you're traveling south. Any direction you move in is south, because that's where the ice wall is. If you bank hard left, you bank hard right, now you're traveling east and west. That's hard to explain to some people, but that's why boats get lost the further south they travel, because the lines are parallel and they don't converge back at the South Pole and they don't converge back at the North Pole. They actually expand away from each other.
I had one more question, and then I'll kind of pipe down and let everybody else ask a question of you, Johnny, since you've been kind enough to come on here and talk to us about this.
Sure.
You mentioned your experience with the expectant mother on the plane who gave birth, and what would have been an intuitive landing in Hawaii ended up being a landing in Anchorage.
Correct.
so that was sort of one of the most compelling things to you that got you to really believe. Is there anything else that was like the eureka moment for you where you're like, this is it, this is reality?
Absolutely.
And conversely,
I have a lot of friends in the military, and going that route, for example, and pilots. If Earth were a spinning sphere, and if a pilot, when they reach 39,000 feet, 40,000 feet at cruising altitude, a commercial plane only travels between 500 and 600 miles an hour. You could research that. And if the Earth is spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, why don't they just hover and let the spin of the Earth bring their destination to them behind them, and they just land?
Okay. That would be pretty convenient.
Right, exactly. So if they're going to follow the curvature of the Earth, traveling at that speed, they would have to dip their nose every 50 seconds to 1 minute as to not fly out into space. Every plane has an artificial horizon or an altimeter or a gyroscope. It's a gyroscope. I can't remember the name of the company, so please forgive me for not remembering those, but there's two companies in the United States that make the gyroscopes. I call both of them. There's no magic circuitry. There's no magic electronics that follow the curvature of the Earth for the pilot while in flight. It is strictly a mechanical device. So when they're cruising in altitude, they set the automatic pilot, they fly level, and they show pictures back and forth of their kids playing soccer stuff for 4 and 5 hours, and they land in their destination. Simple as that. You can ask every pilot what they see up there, and it's a flat plane.
And then conversely, the second part of the question is, what do you think the strongest piece of evidence from the people that don't believe flat Earth, that believe that the Earth is a perfect sphere? What is the most compelling piece of evidence you hear on that side, which causes you maybe sometimes to question your own beliefs about flat Earth? Is there anything like that?
Well, no, that's funny that you brought that up, because me being a ufologist for decades, and then, Andromeda, Zeta Reticuli, the Greys signing the Greada Treaty with Eisenhower, for the exploitation of humans, and then them in return giving us technology and advancements in medicines and fiber optics and touch screen technology and all that stuff. I have to rethink all kinds of physics and everything. So to answer your question, the thing that makes it attractive for most people that think they still live on a spinning sphere is probably every time they go to the movie theater and they see the spinning globe on the Universal Movies picture production, intro. I don't know.
That like subliminal.
Every time you go into a classroom, ever since we were kids, I didn't mean to cut you off. I apologize, but you see a globe there. You are here. You spin the plastic globe, and there it is.
So the research I was doing for the show, what I came across, the people that believe this flat Earth, that the Earth is flat, they tend to be majority. I don't want to use a blanket statement because Greg will yell at me, but the majority of them seem to be religious, like very religious, where they're taking scripture literally. Would you put yourself in that? I know you already mentioned your faith. Would you put yourself in that where you're taking scripture literally?
Well, see, that's the whole thing. It depends on, everybody has a different interpretation on everything. I mean, let's just face it. You see the blinking thing at the crosswalk, and you have 12 seconds left to cross. Some people don't want to take the chance. Some people do. So everybody has a different interpretation on everything. But to answer your question, the more I look into the flat Earth stuff and try to coincide it with scripture, you kind of have to be careful, because scripture is a lot of symbolism. It's not a lot of, those are your exact words. But then again, it might be. I don't know. I'm still alive. That's one of the questions I'll ask God when I die. But a lot of flat earthers do believe that the firmament is a dome. Now, I like to think of it more as a canopy or an awning, which is parallel to flat earth plane. I don't believe once you get on the ice wall and you start walking, and you're walking, on the ice wall, boom. I don't believe that you're going to actually come smacking into an invisible firmament. Now, maybe you can, maybe I don't know. I've never done that. But what I do know in the research I've done, Admiral Byrd Navy Admiral Byrd, respected Navy Admiral Byrd, flew thousands of miles past the South Pole back in like 1920s and the 40s. He did 3 expeditions down there. People don't research that. And the reason why, aviation now says they don't fly over Antarctica, well, it's too cold for the fuel. Well, how come Navy Byrd did it? He flew thousands. He had to fly back around. He had to turn. And what he documented seeing was a patch of land, hundreds or thousands of miles past I can't remember, forgive me again, but there's a 200 area of brown land. No more ice-covered land, no more mountainous ice-covered mountains or snow-covered mountains. Patches of brown green land with lakes and rivers 32 degrees. This is all documented in his journals. Navy Admiral Byrd, you guys should research that. He actually said that he saw a big giant land past the South ice wall, bigger than the continental United States that no man has ever seen. So this is all. He also documented seeing a woolly mammoth. I don't know. That would make I'm just a drummer in a rock and roll band.
Now, I do want to get, since we only have about 5 or 7 minutes left in this segment, and Johnny, again, I always respect a man or a woman, no matter how different their views are than my own, who's not afraid to come on and discuss them. So again, thank you. Mounts, Abby, Mark, Jeff, do you guys have any final questions? Because I have one more final one that I think we can end with. But Abby, go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, Johnny. Thanks for coming on.
Hi, Abby. Thank you.
So I find conspiracy theories to be fascinating. And a lot of them are really interesting to look into because regardless of what evidence there is or is not, I feel like most of them have to do with like the lie. What's being covered up? Why are people lying about this? So right. The thing that I can't wrap my head around with flat earthers is what is the motive for somebody for this huge cover up for the government, NASA, everybody to lie to us about what shape the earth is?
Well, we could get into that type of question towards many different topics, the election, the vaccine, COVID-19, flat earth, but respectfully saying, in regards to conspiracies, no matter what kind of evidence you have towards the subject matter at hand, whether it be flimsy or concrete, you got to remember the conspiracy now becomes a probability. And the more you research into it, if said evidence becomes more concrete, then the probability becomes a possibility. Mm-hmm. So with respect to flat earth, I don't know. I know what I see this morning when I look up at 8 o'clock in the morning, the sun's over here and the moon is over here. There's certain times in the month where you see both the moon and the sky in the same sky. If we were actually on a spinning sphere, they'd be on opposite sides of the globe from each other, but they're not. And I don't have all the answers. Again, I'm just a rock and roll drummer in a rock and roll band. I've been blessed through my career being able to be with the Bay City Rollers and Missing Persons and other great touring bands. But being a flat earther, it has brought me back to God. And I personally feel it's my duty, my calling now to tell everybody else about it. And everybody's got their own mind. As long as it's open and they're accepting and they can, step themselves out of their own box and take a look, they might just say, wow, maybe. I guarantee you, anybody that's researched flat earther has become a flat earther. So I don't know.
Well, keeping an open mind, of course, is always something that I rail on people about. It's important to keep an open mind.
But you got to remember, not to cut you out, you got to remember, I'm 57. I've only been a flat earther for 4 or 5 years now. All my life, I've been the spinning sphere guy, the ufologist guy, the big cosmos where aliens are coming in, that type of guy. My dad's a police officer, retired. He was, God rest his soul, from Long Beach. And I was going through his garage one day and I was going into his army. He was a sergeant in the army. And I found a book It was called The Firefighter's Handbook for Natural Disasters. And it's a book that they gave to all police, National Guard, Army people, etc., fire people. Civilians didn't get it. And my dad startled me real quick. I'll tell you this. He's like, "Oh, you found my book. How are you going through my stuff?" And I said, "Oh, Dad, I'm sorry." He's like, "What book you got there?" And I said, "This, The Firefighter's Handbook." He said, "Read chapter 13." And he walked away. Chapter 13 is what to do in the event of a UFO alien invasion. I was 13, and that started my whole exploration in ufology from that point. So all these decades later, now I'm a flat earther, and trying to put everything together and rethink stuff is quite the challenge.
Yeah, it would be. It would be. Mark, Mounts, do you guys have anything else for Johnny before I finish this out?
If Mark wants to go, all I wanted to say is I made the mistake of doing my research. I started by watching the documentary Behind the Curve, and I wasted an hour and a half of my time because it turned into a love triangle story instead of
Yeah.
it was like what but
they're friends of mine, by the way.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
Rick Hummer, another guy, a big flat, he called me to do a documentary last year, but then the whole COVID thing hit and stuff. So yeah, here's, if you guys want to see a documentary, Convex Earth.
Convex Earth,
Convex, Convex Earth. It's a documentary. It's made in Europe or somewhere, so they got the subtitles there. So if you believe what you're reading is what they're saying, that's cool. But it's like 8 or 10 scientists in a whole bunch of different fields doing what they do to research and do experiments to prove or disprove flat Earth or globe Earth. They all come up with flat Earth. I'm just telling you, you got to see it. Convex Earth. It's a great documentary.
Do you know, have those particular experiments been peer reviewed by any other independent scientists in the field?
I don't know, but that's a good question, and they probably should once they see it. I mean, they're doing like buildings. Like if buildings are flat or on a curve, they would be tilted away from them, the measurement from the tops of the buildings with respect to the base of the buildings. Line of sight. Oh, the Navy. The Navy has a weapon. Oh God, I can't remember. This just popped into my head. But it's the projectile is shot through electricity, and they could fire the projectile nautically over water 110 miles, over land 128 miles. It's line of sight. It's like a 2-degree pencil beam, and you can research that 2-degree pencil beam, like Apache helicopters. They do line of sight. They could knock out a target 60 miles away. And some friends of mine have told me personally that if they allow for the Coriolis effect or Earth curvature, they would miss their target every time. That's a big fakery. So there you go.
Now, Mark, while we still have Mr. Johnny Lust here, who's come on with us to talk some flat Earth, what do you have left for Johnny?
Look, I like a good conspiracy. I believe simply that there's more than we can understand,
absolutely
comprehend, and explain. And I respect anybody's beliefs as long as they don't harm anybody or anything like that. And I've seen stuff that things I talk about, some I don't talk about. And I've been named in conspiracies, which was fun.
I'm shocked.
It wasn't a conspiracy. But we are so far scientifically beyond the shape of the Earth that it's like not smoking on planes. We the majority of us kind of agreed it's something we're not going to do. And I just kind of think that if we can't agree on the shape of the Earth, what are we going to do about things like race relations and things like that? I mean, it kind of, I understand it's one of those conspiracies because I know 2 people who are flat earthers, and the more you go back and forth with them, it's like trying to put out a fire with a log. It just keeps going on, and you're never going to win. Not that winning is the game, but you want. I've considered it. I've researched it. I've come back with the conclusion that the Earth is round, and I know that'll be headline news tomorrow. But the Earth is round, I strongly believe that. But I respect the right of someone to believe otherwise, because I have not been to space. So I don't know, but the overwhelming evidence, the scientific body of evidence, supports that the Earth.
But it's pseudoscience. It's science that supports a lie is pseudoscience. That's the whole problem. We've all been indoctrinated to believe a lie from day one, from the get-go. Listen, if you try to fly from Santiago, Chile to Perth, Australia, which would be an estimated 11-hour flight right across the Atlantic in the southern hemisphere, why in God's name do they go to Hong Kong or Nepal to refuel in the northern hemisphere? On a globe map, it doesn't make any sense. But on a flat Earth map, in aviation, the shortest point between two distances.
Well, everybody knows
exactly, but a lot of these
the Mercator
flights,
map is a politically based map. It doesn't represent the globe accurately. It's a politically based map. Some countries are bigger than they appear on the map. The locations are slightly different. But this whole thing earlier that you said about us being under a
globe
cake
map,
dish,
whether it be the map that you just said or a globe that you see in a kindergarten classroom, the flight path on this globe map or the map that you just said, you start from the southern hemisphere, you cross the equator into the northern hemisphere to refuel, and then you come back into the southern hemisphere to your destination. It doesn't make any sense.
But if
on a
there's
flat
this
Earth aviation map, it
there's
does make perfect sense.
If there's a dome, if it's flat, there's an edge. And
well, see, that's just it. I don't believe there's a dome. I believe it's an infinite flat plane.
Let me finish a sentence, please.
Yes, sir.
If there's a dome that is around us, how do things like meteorites come down and hit the Earth? How do things get through?
Because they don't exist.
How did the aliens on Independence Day get in?
Well, see,
we've got a giant protective cake dish.
That's the first
thing. Now your questions are out of line, Mark.
Well, that's the first thing. Like I said, I've been a ufologist for decades, and I've been a spinning sphere guy. So, like I said so eloquently, I have to rethink physics and everything. The problem with a lot of people that they're refusing to do or choosing not to do is when they want to research flat Earth, they still do it with the conception that meteors are falling to Earth, that satellites are up there, that we've walked on the moon. They still have that perception in the back of their head while they're trying to. You got to forget all of it.
So
real quick, let me just speak to the plane route point. There was a time where I drove across the country with my friend Eric Magruder. I was broke. I had zero money, and it was to move him out there. So he wasn't driving me back home. I had to get back home via airplane. And at that point, my goal was to get the cheapest flight possible. Now, if you've ever flown to California, Philadelphia to California, it's about a 6-hour flight, right? Straight shot. I took the flight because it was the cheapest. It was $75 one way. And it took 9 hours because it went to Dallas, Texas, then Minnesota, then Chicago, then Philadelphia.
Dang.
And I didn't get off the plane one time. It was one plane. So sometimes when you're talking about the most efficient route, they're not looking for the most efficient route. They're looking for the route that makes the most money, which is why they refueled in Hong Kong, not because they were looking for the quickest route to get there. So that's one point to the plane.
One explanation for it. And Jeff, did you have a second part of that?
Well, I think the problem I have with that meteors don't exist and we didn't land on the moon, like we can look through a telescope and we can see meteors. We can see these things. We can see other planets through these high-powered telescopes. You can physically go do it and see that other planets are around. So I guess I have a hard time believing this because it's if all of the other planets are around, why are we the only flat one?
Yeah, but the only telescopes that you're speaking of are government controlled or NASA controlled. All the civilian telescopes, they're taking. You're seeing anomalies, but they're not the CGI that we're fed to believe.
So
I mean,
know
let's
a lot
face
of
it, NASA gets over $19 billion a year, and all they can produce is crappy CGI. I mean, I didn't mean to swear there, but for God's sakes, high school
You can say
kids, right?
crappy.
High school kids nowadays do better artwork in CGI than what NASA gives us. You know, come on.
Well, I know a lot of flat Earth folks believe that essentially what you got going on above us is like a planetarium type situation where it's an artificially presented image to make you believe it's one way or the other. Now, I know we have to finish up here, so I did have one more thing for you, Johnny.
Yes,
I
sir.
know I used to tell people, like, I would have Christian friends, and they would be like, well, you know, I know you don't believe in this, but like, what are you going to do if it's all true and, you know, like the rapture happens and Jesus comes back? And I said to them, I said, look, if the day ever comes that Jesus came back and it was all true, that would be enough for me immediately to say, I was wrong. I apologize. My brain took me astray, and I believe now. So my question for you, with that as an example, my question for you is, can you think of anything that you could be presented where you would be like, that's indisputable proof, and I was wrong on this one. This has convinced me that really the reality of things is that the world is round. Is there anything that you can think of that you could be presented with that might give you that kind of just, okay, I had it wrong?
That to bring me back to the spinning sphere geocentric model. At this point, nothing. I mean, okay, they're in Siberia, USSR, Russia. There's Lake Baikal. It's 395.2 miles from end to end. 5 months out of the year, it freezes. Dead, flat, frozen water. Properties of water, it takes the shape of its container. It always rests level. How is Google Earth going to tell me that a frozen lake 400 miles of dead, flat water follows this curvature path? Doesn't happen. I'm sorry.
All right. Well, this man is not to be.
And one more quick thing with respect and rebut to what you said about plane flights, why they would travel into the equator to make the money to refuel and put the passenger, give them a 27-hour flight as opposed to a 19-hour flight. What brought me into the flat Earth, you got to remember, when that lady gave birth to a baby on a plane, now there's 2 lives at risk. Trust me, an airline isn't going to chance putting themselves in a lawsuit to fly to Anchorage, Alaska, just to make money, to get more money to refuel when there's 2 lives at risk. They could have easily landed in Honolulu or continued on to their flight, but they didn't. They landed in Anchorage because on a flat Earth map, it's on the way. Well, and that's about saving lives.
Well, sure, but first of all, what year did that happen? And
it was like 3 years ago, 2018 or something like that. I'll send you the link.
Are there any other like local newspapers or anything else that covered that?
Yeah, it was all over. I could send you everything.
Because I would also say it's very rare that a woman is on a plane during her 3rd trimester to give birth, because you're not supposed to fly.
There's video of it and everything.
I don't believe that there's not video. I'm just saying, like, it's a rare occurrence that a woman about to give birth is on a flight, because every doctor will tell you that you can't travel in your 3rd trimester.
Well, I mean, Abby, your doctor maybe in Taiwan, right? They have a little more of a leniency gig. I don't know.
I guess that's possible. I'm just saying, like, I don't think it. Number one, it doesn't happen often. Right. Number two, that's a big enough deal where all of the local papers and it could even be national news.
Oh yeah, it was national. It's definitely.
Yeah. It's on ABC
yes
News.
To all of your questions. It was all over.
With a quick Google, it popped up on ABC News.
I would be interested to find out what the explanation was why they landed in where they did. That's all.
Thank God it's on the internet. It must be true.
Just like President Biden won the election.
Well, oh boy!
There's a whole different show. That's the perfect
whole different show. For that absolutely.
One, Johnny. That's the perfect way to end this segment.
Yeah, let's elect a guy with dementia and has had 2 strokes.
Again,
you're going to get him going, Jeff. You better let him go while he's still calm.
Johnny, I want to thank you for coming on today.
Hey, I want to thank you guys. You guys are beautiful. I love you. I really, honestly believe. I truly mean that. You know, as Jeff said, it's really hard to talk even about flat Earth. And for you guys to give me a platform for this, just to spout off you know, that I love you. Thank you, guys. That's wonderful. You guys are wonderful people. Thank you.
You've been a great guest. Make sure you check out Three Blind Mice.
Hey.
How can they find you on YouTube? Do you guys have
I'm on
you guys have
Facebook.
fan page?
It's facebook.com/3blindmice. Everything spelled out, 3blindmice.lv for Las Vegas. And if you guys ever venture out this way, fireball shots are on me all day.
Oh, there we go.
All right, we're there.
We'll smoke mass bowls.
Oh, yeah.
That's a perfect way to end because we can all agree on that.
Hey, I COVID test myself
common
every
ground.
hour because I'm a pot smoker. No, seriously, you think I'm joking or I'm being funny? But if I were not be able to take a hit so deeply, inhale it, and keep it in for 30 seconds, I'd have a problem. And I'd be worried.
Right.
That's how I'm going to test myself too. Now.
Absolutely.
You inspired me, Johnny.
All right, thank you so much, Johnny, and we would love to have you back on for another
Absolutely.
topic when the time is right. So we're going to take a quick break. We will be back after this, and again, check out Three Blind Mice on Facebook, YouTube. Check out their videos. If you're out west, go check out one of their shows. Johnny's got a nice voice. I really liked it. I really enjoyed that video that you sent me. So thanks again for being on here, and we'll see you back here in a minute.
Thanks, you guys.
Welcome back to the Ever-Evolving Truth. We are continuing our discussion here on Flat Earth. You just heard our segment with Johnny Lust from Three Blind Mice, and it's an interesting segment. The guy is super nice. Did he change any minds here today? That's the question.
He did not.
No.
Yeah. I really, this is truly genuine for my part. We've been doing this show now for 30 something odd episodes. And this is the first guy, short notice, had no idea who we were, never listened to our show. And he was brave enough to come on and give his unpopular side.
And let this be the proof that we will not attack you if you come on and talk about it.
If he was a dick, I totally would have, but he wasn't. He was a truly nice guy. And I wanted to hear him out. I wanted, believe it or not, maybe I've never said this, but believe it or not, I would love it if these conspiracy theories were true. Because holy shit, right? Like we found out the Earth was flat, it would be the biggest fucking thing in the entire world. It would be insane. And to say that you lived during that discovery, it would be absolutely insane. It would be mind blowing. It would be interesting and entertaining in an otherwise dull life. But the fact of the matter is, it's just not. The one thing, and I didn't push back on it, but when he called it pseudoscience, that the Earth is round, the definition of the flat Earth theory is in fact pseudoscience, right? There's a bunch of smart people out there that got together to make it sound like they knew what they're talking about, and base it on some scientific evidence that might point to reasons why the Earth isn't round, and people latched onto that. And again, I hate to say it, but it's generally people that are uber religious. And right from the bat, I think he said exactly the reason why he's a flat Earth. I think he was out there in his life and he was looking for a reason to find God again. And this was the reason. He couldn't bring himself to go back to God any other way except for through this flat Earth theory. That's my theory. Again, it's just an opinion, but that's what it seems to me.
We're going to talk more about that in the third segment too, when we talk about why do we think people are drawn to this? Why do people believe in not just this, but other conspiracies? But I think it's important too, that pseudoscience thing. That's a weapon as much as it is something that they are saying because they believe it. I could if I could say a whole bunch of bullshit about search and rescue to Jeff, Mounts, and Abby, and then when they push back, I'd be like, well, have you ever gone on a search and rescue mission? How would you know? And they can get you on that technicality. Mark would be the only one here that could be like, well, I'm actually an expert on that, and I could tell you why that's not true. If I had a question about the finer points of cooking and being a chef, all of you I could probably talk some nonsense to, and Abby would be like, no, from statement one you were wrong, and here's why. So this pseudoscience idea is a weapon, because what are you going to say when people are like, well, what proof do you have that it's round? It's like, well, it's a non-starter unless I have my NASA files or my measurements to go. Go ahead, Mark.
No, when you argue with them, it fuels the fire. And what they've done is they've used the internet to weaponize ignorance.
Yes.
Okay. And it's gotten out of control because you can't disagree. He was a very nice man. And if believing this brings him
we lost Mark.
God,
he's back again. Oh.
Go ahead, Mark. You got off right when you said if believing this brings him peace,
in what he defines as God, then more power to him. We should all be so lucky. But don't try and change me to believe your same thing. I don't believe that. That was such a strain for me to control my facial reactions, and I think I failed.
You failed miserably.
Miserably.
I don't think it was miserably.
It was miserable.
Sterner's wife didn't do so good either, because she lost it at one point, and Jeff lost it right after the break, or right.
Yeah.
Well, I lost it on the Biden thing. You know where I stand on that. Well, look, I mean, and the fact of the matter is that this has been debunked by people that have gone to space, and it's so easy. And this is the definition of pseudoscience. It's so easy to say, well, they're part of the conspiracy. Well, how do you know? Again, Abby asked the question, and he danced around it. He never answered it.
He didn't answer
what
it.
is the benefit to fooling everybody? Like, you're talking about $19 billion a year going to NASA, and they can't produce anything. Okay, I'll give you that. But it would take way more than $19 billion a year to keep this conspiracy up, right? Like, it's just there's no benefit. Like,
that's where any conspiracy goes off the rails, Jeff. Like, if you look at the Kennedy assassination, I've researched that one to a sick degree. You have had, like, the big question that people that believe it was a conspiracy and believe that Oswald didn't act alone will come at you and say, well, X number of people have died in mysterious circumstances since then, and how would all these people have stayed quiet about it? And the people on the conspiracy side are like, no. A lot of people have come out and not only taken credit for it, but have claimed to have been a part of it, have claimed to have been associated with it. But then also a lot of people have lied about it, lied their asses off about it. And it's like, people never stay quiet about anything. Okay, that is just a person thing. We don't stay quiet, especially in big numbers. We definitely do not stay quiet. Also, we are glory hounds in a lot of ways, and we will often take as much credit as we can for things, especially if it associates us with something that we want to be associated with. So these conspiracies often go off the rails when you're like, look, this thing would have to be so big and so many people involved, and they're, and they'll just come at you with like, no, well, that's what they want you to think. Well, no, they're all indoctrinated. Could you imagine? They can't come out. They can't speak the truth because now their livelihood depends on it. They have these like comebacks, but if you really think about the comebacks, they're total nonsense comebacks.
And all the other countries that are involved in have their own space program would have to be involved too. Like, why is Russia working with our country to keep up this conspiracy? Why is China working with our country to keep up this conspiracy? Like, there's other countries that have space programs that also say the Earth is round.
We can't agree on climate
real
change.
Problems. Why are we even worried about this? There are real problems. Why are we worried about buying robot or unicorn insurance? There are actual issues.
Yeah. Well, you're right, Mark.
On Earth.
It's just once in a while we need a break from the real issues here, and
what really bothered me was he beat me down to the point where you and I were in agreement, and I just found that unacceptable.
What, me and you?
Yeah. Everything you said, I agreed with. I did.
Mark, we agree on way more than you want to admit. You may not like it, but we do. I talk a lot about how dangerous conspiracy theories are. This one, I want to pose this question to the group. This one doesn't bother me in the sense that it's really dangerous, but almost like how you remember how they used to say that marijuana was a gateway drug. I feel like maybe the danger in like this flat Earth conspiracy is it's a gateway conspiracy to other batshit insane things that do get dangerous, like a QAnon, like a Hillary Clinton ran a pedophile ring out of a pizza parlor type thing. I feel like that's a gateway. What do you guys think about that thought?
I could argue the gateway drug marijuana thing if you want me to take the other side. I did work at a place that helped adults going back into society after being in rehab, and I flipped on the marijuana thing. I could argue against you on that, and we could fight like we're supposed to.
Well, we can do that on a different show for sure.
I think it's a good way to put it, Jeff, the gateway drug, because this is what Neil deGrasse Tyson always rails on them for, and he's like public enemy number one to the flat earthers.
Right.
But he basically says that, this is a dangerous way of thinking. If you think this way about flat Earth, it means that you have to ignore or flat out refuse what should be obvious factual information that has plenty of photographic, technical, and all other kinds of evidence for it by any other measure of science. So either you have to say all of science from Aristotle on is a lie and a conspiracy theory, or in order for you to reject that amount of evidence. So if you think like that about flat Earth, I would imagine that, like Abby said, you're not a one trick pony conspiracy theorist. You are most likely a wide-reaching conspiratorial thinker. And if you think like that, you are going to be a dangerous thinker about things that might be more serious than flat Earth.
The problem is that what you said right there, it's never one thing. You get down to the wire and you go, bye, goodbye, hello, have a nice day and everything. And then you spell off the 8 other things indicating that you believe everything is a conspiracy, and you yell Baba Booey and run out of the room naked.
Neil deGrasse Tyson said that it is just as intellectually lazy to believe everything you're told at face value as it is to disbelieve everything you're told. And I find conspiracy theories really interesting because they are challenging what we're being told by the media, by the government, by everyone. And it's important to look at things through that lens. But yeah, as I said earlier, the thing that I just can't wrap my head around is, what is the motive for this lie if it's a lie? Like, who has indoctrinated 99.9% of the science community and NASA and every government across the globe? Like, why?
Why?
And the funniest thing about
no
that
one's
is
getting rich off of this conspiracy.
No, it's money. It's always money.
No flat earther, even the people on the films have not been able to, aside from it's the same evil cabal of Satan worshiping pedophile overlords. It's all them doing it. That's the only thing that they have to come at you with. One thing that's funny about it, though, and it wouldn't be funny for somebody whose whole belief system was wrapped up in this, but if you look at Alex Jones, if you look at even the people in this Behind the Curve documentary, Mark Jacobs and what's her name, Patricia, what the hell's her name, Patricia Steer, all these people are being accused in the flat earth circles of being CIA operatives and hatchet man for Hollywood and stuff like that, and it's a Warner Brothers based conspiracy. Like, what happens is if your whole system of belief is based on everything's a lie, don't believe what you're being told, eventually the very cornerstones and the people who are the linchpin personalities of your cause, they will be accused of being part of the overall thing, because that's the natural extent to that thinking, is to disbelieve and mistrust everything. Eventually you will mistrust each other, which is why something like Flat Earth has its own camps and mounts. I know, I hope you get on this, but they even have insulting names for each other in these camps.
Right. Well, if you guys are listening to this, I watched a YouTube video today, and it was really interesting. It can be found. The channel's called Jubilee. The title of it's Flat Earthers versus Scientists, and they sit down across from each other, flat earthers and three flat earthers or 3 scientists, right? And one of the scientists is an astrophysicist. They're all very qualified scientists, and the flat earthers, one was a service member, military person. The other guy was just like a dad, like an uber religious dad, and the other guy was like a HVAC guy, And so you're sitting in front of the 3 of the smartest people in the world, and they're arguing the Earth is flat, and you could see the frustration on their faces because they're this is settled science, and then the flat earthers will come back, are like, well, is it really settled? Is there 100% consensus? And they're like, no, you're never going to get to 100% consensus because science is ever evolving. It can always get better. But it's actually really funny. It's a half hour long. Does not seem like a half hour. It goes by in 5 minutes. But worth watching for sure. But they give out
the flat earthers won that one rather easily. You're saying?
Well, they won because no one can otherwise.
Yeah.
No matter how much science that they put out there, actual science. And I think that's what's so frustrating because, Johnny, he said there was nothing that could convince him otherwise at this point. Like, what if
that's what bothered me right there?
What if we shot him up in a rocket? Like, what if we built a rocket? So the government had nothing to do with it. We shot him up into space, and you could clearly see that the Earth is round. He would come back down. He would still be like, no, the Earth is flat.
He would say I was drugged and it was a simulation.
It was all virtual reality.
Right. And that's the other thing that he almost loses his own argument when he talks about this, like, $19 billion a year and they put out poor CGI. It's because they're not putting out CGI. It's hard to take a picture in space. That's why the quality isn't great, and like, one of the pictures that they use as an example is a picture that was taken in 1972. And what they did was they did reassemble that picture to update it and make it look clear. But the picture is based off of a 1972 picture, an actual picture taken from space.
Yeah,
the reason it doesn't look great is because A, pictures weren't that great a quality in 1972, and B, they were trying to do it from space. It's really fucking hard to do shit in space.
I think you're talking about the blue marble picture,
yes.
Jeff, and you're right. There have been very touched up versions of that, but there is, if you look at the original doesn't look as impressive as the doctored or spruced up photos to make it look more accurate and like color corrected and stuff. But even the original 72 picture, if you can look at that picture and think that's a flat Earth, like, well, obviously they don't even think the picture's real. They think the whole thing's a conspiracy. But like that, in any other thing, if they showed them a picture of a German Shepherd with 3 legs and 1 ear, they'd probably believe that based on a photograph of it. But it's like when you get into this zone, no, it's all a lie. So, Mounts, can you talk us through a few? I know you're not the flat Earth expert of the world or anything, but I know this has been a hobby of yours, kind of watching over these people a little bit.
For like 4 or 5 months since we talked about doing this episode, Mounts has been trying to infiltrate flat Earth groups.
Oh my God! It was infuriating to me that you got a guest, because I would go. I've been in there since we brought up this idea, and I'm like, oh hey. It would just be globetard this, flatty idiot, like he's really mean, like the globetard got me, and there's like and they would just be like going back and forth, and then it would be like they wouldn't discuss anything. It would just be insults. And then why, if you're a globetard, why are you here? And then like, what, and I was like, hi, and I would make it sound like I was like, hi, I'm Mounts, I'm doing this podcast. We're looking for guests to help me prove the point of a flat Earth, and they'd be like, "What are you even doing here?" Like, I'm trying to get. So it was infuriating. I did want to mention that he mentioned this Richard Byrd expedition. That's his proof that there's no. And I looked into it. It was an expedition in 1927. So what kind? That was always my thing. In this day and age, we can't hit this ice wall that they're claiming it surrounds the entire Earth.
Right. Nobody of all of the expeditions that have been going on for hundreds, thousands of years, nobody got to the edge yet.
And almost meteorites aren't real.
Oh my God. Yeah. But that almost proved my point. I'm like, if he flew and never hit the ice wall, doesn't that mean there is no ice wall?
Right. Exactly.
Well, that's the thing, really quick, Mouse, before you continue. This image of the ice wall. Look, if you lived hundreds and hundreds of years ago and you were surrounded by like the Himalayas, okay, I could see very reasonably you having the belief that like where you were was your world and this was your reality and this was the barrier between you and something infinite. Maybe it was the mind of God, or maybe it was an infinite ocean, or whatever you thought it was. I could see believing that. The problem I have with the flat Earth theory people is that there is no reason at all to believe this anymore. Like, you are on the same level of people thousands of years ago even who were trying to make heads or tails of what the Earth was, and with their limited ability to understand it. And
they didn't have the technology to leave their backyard.
None of it. Right. And now you are on that level, except you're making, I'll give them credit, in some cases cleverly done YouTube videos and things like that. And look, I do know something about a conspiratorial mind. I'm a little paranoid by nature, and I have gotten wrapped up in a lot of conspiracy stuff when I was younger. And the thing that's so attractive is that it feels good to be on the cutting edge of the truth when everybody else is like a sheeple in your mind, right? It feels good to be able to feel like you're on the inside track on something, and to feel like it is everybody's against you, because it does explain why maybe you're kind of a miserable failure in life. It kind of like it gives you a pass for that, because the whole system's rigged against us anyway, and it's a big lie. But these videos, they get you thinking a certain way, and then it becomes your entertainment. It becomes the thing you can rail against, and most importantly, which we'll talk about in the third segment, it becomes a place for you to commune and communicate with others who want to talk about the same shit you want to talk about, and it becomes a communal thing. So all these things weigh into being part of this, but your actual conclusion that you're drawing here is so ludicrous that it's almost like I can't believe this has made it that far. So sorry to go on so much, but I just want to have it said.
Conspiracy theories at their core are not necessarily a bad thing. It's when they control your life, when they cause you to do things that are harmful to other people. Like Mark said, as long as you're not harming anybody, you can think what you want, but that's the problem. It usually ends up harming somebody when you because it ends up going too far. So it's like at some point when you are shown unrefutable evidence that your conspiracy theory is wrong, you have to be able to drop it.
Well,
right?
That's the problem. You should question everything always, but there's a point. We have access now to have unlimited information, and when we get exposed to unlimited evidence that points to a conclusion that's contrary to what we're preaching, and we refuse to change, that's just a mental health issue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, and it's like the questioning the results of the election. Okay, if you truly believe that the election was stolen from your guy, fine, but let's go through the evidence. Here's the evidence. Clearly shows that the election was not stolen, but you're still touting that theory. There's something wrong with you, right? There's something wrong up here, because no matter what we show you, clear evidence, you refuse to believe it. You refuse to accept it as such. And again, it's not disputable at some point, and that's where we are, in my opinion. Not even my opinion. That's the fact. That's where we are with the shape of the Earth. It's round. Like if you watch a ship go off into the ocean, eventually it disappears. Right? You can't stand up on like one of the scientists in that video I was talking about like, look, if the Earth was flat, you could stand on the Empire State Building and you could see Chicago. You could see the lights of Chicago. And the rebuttal to that on the flat Earth side was, well, no, there's atmospheric interference. Like, you're a fucking HVAC guy. What do you know about atmospheric interference? Like, where's your expertise in this?
That's typical narrow-minded globe-tard thinking.
Right?
Yeah, you flatty.
Yeah. A YouTube video is not a fact. A YouTube video is not irrefutable evidence. I'm sorry, it's just not.
Well, and even that atmospheric lensing thing, that is so easily disproven just by no matter where you stand on the Earth at any time in all conditions, the movement of the sun, that 15 degree or whatever movement it is, that is uniform and consistent from any position on the world, you will see that gradual movement of the sun. And if flat Earth, if the measurements even of flat Earth were true, that couldn't be possible. It would not be as consistent and uniform as that. That's only synonymous with a theory of a globe Earth. But then they're like, well, but the reason you think that, and the reason you think that's what we're seeing, is because of this atmospheric lensing thing. It's like, no, that's the position that you would see it in the middle of the desert. That's the way you would see it in Antarctica. That's the way you would see it anywhere on this planet, and that's only consistent with a globe Earth model. Mounts, what drew you to want to follow these people? Because you have been the most interested ones in, like I said, keeping an eye on them. What is it that interests you about these people, and do you think any of their points are any good, like convincing in any way? Well,
and I think Abby hit the nail on the head when she said, "What would be the point?" I was like, I saw that documentary. And I was like, there is a astounding number of people that believe this, to the point where there's now a convention every year where they display their flat Earth they mock globes, that there's people that make money off selling these flat discs with the ice walls around them. And I was like, why do so many people believe this? And then you start looking at like, what's the benefit? And there's no benefit. And it just really comes down to all I found is people having such distrust in society, like they need something to distrust, and it just does. It never added up to me, so that's why I've never switched to the flatty. And I
Do you think anything they say it was enough to give you pause, or anything that was like, never really thought about it that way? What do you think? Like, are their strongest arguments, if they have any?
There really isn't any strong argument that science hasn't disproved.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on one sec.
The plane thing gets me. Like one incident in the air of a child being born on a flight does not automatically prove that the Earth is flat.
Well, in the words of Peter Griffin, who the hell cares? It doesn't matter at the end of the day. Let's say he's right and the Earth is flat. It does not change your tax rate. It doesn't change your health. It doesn't change anything. The only thing you do is lose time arguing this silly theory with him. If he wants to believe that to be happy, let him believe that. You know, it's like I say all the time. You can put on an orange sweater, put a stick up your butt, say you're a creamsicle, but don't ask me to lick you.
Well, I was working up the courage to do that.
They're that way.
But I guess I got my answer already.
Mark's right, though. I mean, it really is a waste of time, because the irony is, if you were to talk to a scientist and you ask them, you know, if tomorrow you went to the South Pole, and it was this massive ice wall that was the edge of the flat Earth, a scientist would tell you, well, yeah, I would change my theory on what I believe the Earth looked like. These flat earthers, you could show them anything and they wouldn't change their opinion. So it's a futile argument, conversation, debate. You're not going to change their mind.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, you know, I used to say that about fighting with my ex. Like, you can't argue with crazy. So, like, because they don't have to play by the rules, you know. And it's the same thing with these folks. You know, if a scientist would observe that, they follow the scientific method, they draw a hypothesis, and they test the hypothesis, and they come up with a conclusion that is then peer reviewed, and everybody accepts this is the truth. Well, if you're dealing with somebody who operates by no rules at all, therefore they don't have to follow any rules, they can just pull shit right out of their ass the whole conversation. And like, eventually the reason why it seems like maybe flat earthers win debates sometimes is because it's like a war of attrition. Eventually, like, they just give up, and they're like, well, like you said, you can't convince them.
Don't call them crazy, because you're insulting crazy people and people that have mental health ailments.
I called my ex crazy, not all of them.
These people tend to be, well, you said arguing with crazy people, implying that they are crazy, and that's an easy thing to do. What they are really is they're just contrarians. That's all they are. They're just contrarians. They just want to get a rise out of you about something they don't really care about. They're passionate about this thing because it gets a rise out of people, and it makes them interesting at the party. It makes them stand out a little.
Yeah, but I actually thought the main guy in the movie that we just watched, this Behind the Curve, Mark Jacobs, I don't personally believe Mark Jacobs even believes this shit anymore. I think now this has become the thing he's known for, and he's going to ride it as far as he can ride it. He even says in the movie, Mounts, you can correct me if I'm wrong on the quote, but I think it was something like, even if I wanted to leave at this point, I couldn't. Because essentially I mean too much to these people. But it's like, well, this obviously means a lot to you too, because it's your whole identity besides living with your mom. And
and he perpetuates it because he's monetizing it. It's become his identity. So he perpetuates this madness.
Right.
You know, can we get on to like Sasquatch and stuff like that? I thought
Listen, I would love for some of these conspiracy theories. I want there to be a Loch Ness monster, but they're just not. I want there to be Bigfoot, and maybe there is, but until you show me Bigfoot, it doesn't exist. I'm sorry, like these shows that are on the Discovery Channel have been proven to be bullshit. Like, it's just some producer out in the woods making noise and them going, oh, that's proof. That's proof. Bigfoot exists. Like, it's such insanity. It's not even sometimes you have to laugh about it, but like, I'm just fascinated. The reason, Mark, why we talk about this is, you're right, there are many more important topics to talk about and discuss and find solutions to, but it is fascinating to try and understand how these people think. It really is. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll talk about why people are attracted to these types of conspiracy theories, and we can open it up to all conspiracy theories. It doesn't have to just be flat Earth, because I think there's a lot of similarities between people attracted to the flat Earth theory and also many other conspiracy theories that have been debunked over and over and over again, but still people are attracted to them for some reason. I would guess that we're going to find that there's a lot of similar qualities in the people attracted to each. So let's take a quick break. We'll come back with Mark Hopkins, Abby Sterner. We'll talk more flat Earth. Welcome back to the Ever-Evolving Truth. We're here with Mark Hopkins, Abby Sterner. Earlier we had on Johnny Lust from Three Blind Mice. We're talking flat Earth. And during this segment, we kind of want to examine the reason why people tend to be attracted to things like this. And not only that, not only people, but a lot of people. Like this, there's millions of people that subscribe to the flat Earth theory. There's even more millions of people that subscribe to the conspiracy theory that Joe Biden stole the election. So it's like, why are people attracted to these types of things? Anybody want to start us off?
Go ahead,
Mark. Yep. Jump right in.
They want to feel smarter. They want to feel like they know something that other people don't know. They want to they want to understand something that brings them a sense of calmness, like looking at a campfire or whatever it is for them. And the internet has just become this shining, sparkling, festering turd that just attracts these fly-brained morons to it. And they circle it and they find what they want. The problem is, back in the old days, we'd had newspapers and we had editors, and editors made sure that what got out there had quality. Now everybody can produce content. You, me, Johnny, anyone can produce content, but nobody qualifies that content. And everybody thinks their content is gospel. You can go out there and find proof of anything. When I want to shut my mind down, I'll tell you what I do, because I love me a good conspiracy, but it's got to be a good conspiracy, not a crappy conspiracy. What I do is I go by every newspaper tabloid, and I get a place, hot tub, get some tacos. You sit in the hot tub and you read about the Sasquatch moon base, and you just clear your mind. You just clear your mind.
So hold on. So Mark's answer to this is a hot tub, tacos, and tabloids.
Yeah,
that sounds like a great Tuesday night.
Perfect.
Both Mark and Jeff have expressed excitement over the Loch Ness Monster and Sasquatch being real things. I just want to know, Jeff.
I mean, wouldn't that be awesome that there's a monster living amongst us for all these years? Like, it would be great. It's just not true. They already, the guy who was running the hoax came out and admitted it. The people that still believe there's a Loch Ness Monster are fucking morons. The guy who ran the hoax said it was me. It's fake. There's no monster.
Well,
how much more do you need?
The legend of the Loch Ness Monster, I think, predates that guy. He came out and said that he created a hoax. But I want to know, how high pitched would your squeal of joy be if you were down in Scotland, backpacking, staying in hostels, and you went out to the lake and you saw not only the Loch Ness Monster but Bigfoot riding the Loch Ness Monster?
That would be great.
Wouldn't that make your whole life right there?
It would be.
No, because who do you tell that to? You're going to whip your camera out. It's going to be a picture of your leg in the ground, and you're going to as they go back in the water.
No, you just dive in with them, and then that's your new life.
Well, I would even be excited to be at the lake when the guy was running his hoax. That would be enough for me. Like, oh my God, like, what are the chances of that? Like, I'm here at the same time this guy who's running a hoax, a successful hoax. That would be just cool in and of itself. Mark, I think you're right. People want to feel smart, but I also think it's a sense of belonging. Like, of all the good things that the internet does, there's also equally bad things. And one of those things is it's even though like we can speak to anyone at any time at anywhere in the world, it's also like really isolated us and made life quite lonely for many people. And being a part of these conspiracies give them a sense of family, give them a sense of belonging.
It's expanded our ability to narrow our minds and to pick more prejudices and to pick more categories. It's done the opposite of what everybody thought it would. Mm-hmm. We have more ways to hate, more ways to narrow our minds instead of just being global in thought and thinking as one race, human race or whatever. Look, there's many reasons to dislike people or whatever, but keep them legitimate and everything. Bigfoot, you want to talk about Bigfoot? And I would argue that I don't know that Bigfoot doesn't exist. I'll take the conspiracy guys thing on this because my argument for that has always been there's so much in this world that we do not know about. There is a statistical chance that something that skipped the evolutionary chart is out there.
I agree with you on that. Like, but all I'm saying is everything that points to there's a Bigfoot right now is complete bullshit. There's nobody that has seen Bigfoot except for maybe a footprint that they found that they can't explain. That is enough for me to have hope that it's out there. But again, until you show me Bigfoot, I'm not going to go preaching like it's gospel. You know what I mean?
Well, right, and that's the mistake they make too, is that once they are a true believer, they come at you almost cocky and almost like, well, here it is. Yeah, the earth is round. We're right. Yeah, okay. Like when what's his name? Sergeant and his wannabe girlfriend, Steer, he had a huge crush on her, as you were commenting on, Mounts. He really wanted to get in there. But when they were at the NASA building, it's like they're going around to things that are completely innocuous that don't mean anything. And they're like, look, it's all falling apart. Look, what a joke. Can you believe they're trying to pass this off? But at least something like, that movie, The Meg, right? That was based on a book called Meg, which is about a prehistoric megalodon shark that came from the Mariana Trench. Well, at least you have a reason to believe that something like that's possible because our exploration of the Mariana Trench is very limited. Whereas
also it's proven that existed at one point in time. Right. So it makes it a little more possible that it made it this far.
Well, but we also know there might have been something like a plesiosaur, but most of Loch Ness has been explored in some form or fashion, and most of the wilderness areas that Sasquatch is said to be in have been explored. So again, less reason to believe it is the larger point there. Mark, you mentioned something interesting about why do these big movements always end up having spokespeople for them? Like, why is there like the head guy or the head girl that comes out as sort of the voice and the I always think in terms of wrestling. So like the carnival barker for this conspiracy show. Why do you think that happens?
Well, I don't know. I was saying this the other day. I don't know why aliens travel light years to anally probe on their vacation. While they travel and they go after some
like they're going to the Bahamas.
Yeah, they're not going in. They land and they always picked up like 3-tooth Bobby, and and they probe him so he can run back. They never land and grab Neil deGrasse Tyson or whatever and go, dude, space, let's talk. They never grab anybody credible, and I think that
they never grab the smartest person on earth.
Right. It's they do the same thing reporters do when they sell a story. They want to get the dumbest person they can to put on camera to go, that car came out of nowhere and hurt somebody, to misrepresent the community in toto. And the thing is that all these guys are doing is they're just completely bastardizing the old allegory of the cave in spreading the knowledge, and just keeping it. It's infuriating that somebody can walk around and be that full of shit and not just have flowers growing out of them.
Yeah, well, they need a spokesperson because it lends credibility to something that sounds insane to most people, right? Scientology needs a Tom Cruise. Our religious friends from the first episode needed whatever his name was in order to make it believable.
To tell them what to think and what to believe.
It lends them, even though that person has no credibility on that particular topic. It lends credibility. It automatically lends credibility when you have a name that is somewhat known.
Someone to point to.
But wait a second.
Hold on one second, Mark. Do you know how many people in this world Alex Jones fills that role for?
Mm-hmm.
That guide through reality. Yep. He fills that role for an alarming, frightening number of people. Go ahead, Mark.
Religion doesn't need credibility for the same reasons. And not to say it shouldn't be credible, but it doesn't need credibility because religion is about faith.
Yeah, but Scientology needs a spokesperson.
Scientology isn't religion. It's
right. But that's why it needs a spokesperson. That's why it needs a Tom Cruise.
Right. It needs a PR person and everything.
Exactly.
Real religion doesn't need that. Real religion doesn't need some slick guy that looks like he's selling you aluminum siding that's going to fall.
Although it has its Joel Ossoff. Is it Ossoff?
Osteen.
Osteen, yeah. It has its Billy. What was it, Billy Graham? It has its spokespeople.
But real religion isn't on a screen. It's in a little wooden building. Get away from the screen.
They're posing as real religion.
Yes.
But I mean, these spokespeople have private jets. I don't believe they believe what they're preaching. I don't believe Tom Cruise is a real Scientologist. I believe he's getting a ton of money to represent the Scientology community.
I'd like to know what the hell a real Scientologist would even be. Go ahead, Abby.
I was just going to say, I think it's like a symbiotic relationship where you have these people who have a certain type of personality where they thrive on the on the fans and the worship and the praise, and they are smart enough and articulate enough to say all the things that the base of whatever group we're talking about can get behind. It's like they say all the right things, or it's like, yeah, what that guy said. And if you get somebody in that position who is, articulate, they're able to speak on whatever the topic is intelligently. Maybe they have a bombastic personality and they just really draw people to them. That's why these people get into these roles of power.
There are any social contrarians that just want to join a cult but don't want to wear robes.
Well, that's a good point. I was going to say, let's call these what they are. They're cults. They're some of them big, some of them small, but they're cults. And every cult has a leader. And here's the other thing too: you can also be the biggest piece of shit human being. You can be a racist. You can be a bigot. You can be just the worst human on the planet. But if you go there into their open arms and say, I believe what you believe, they're going to accept you because they just want members. They want people to agree with them. So I can be a huge piece of shit in my real life, and I could be like, well, I believe the earth is flat, and they're going to welcome me with open arms.
Yeah, and
I'm playing the Jeff drinking game. You take a drink every time he says people are huge pieces of shit, and you just blitz by the end of the podcast.
I think it was actually a brilliant point you made, Abby, that was why that they have the ability. What that person is saying and the way they say it is an elixir almost for these people. It's so much easier for them to follow that than to do all the research necessary. You heard Johnny say it earlier. I'm having to unlearn physics. Essentially what that means is I have to eliminate everything else and only believe what these people in this sect of belief are telling me. And that has to be my whole world. So therefore I have to explain everything else away. And if I can't, I'm going to ask them, how do I explain that away? But you see that outside of cult thinking too. Why do you think Neil deGrasse Tyson is as popular as he is? Because he is an access point for astrophysics. Right. For most people, because he's got a great personality, he's got charisma, good-looking guy, good television presence kind of thing. Why is Bill Nye the science guy? Obviously, there's something about him that makes explaining science to a large number of people, especially younger folks, appealing. So you have that, there's something about, there's a reason why salespeople are, the good-looking salespeople with the $1 million smile are going to have more success than a guy that looks like me coming out there trying to sell you. Right? Because there's something that's an elixir of sorts about the presentation. But you see that beyond just this cult way of thinking too.
It depends on what they're selling. I mean,
right.
It depends on what they're selling. What it matches up for. If you were selling sparkly lights or tiny hats, then you're the man.
You'd be there.
Tiny hat? Are you trying to? What are you saying?
Wow. Wow.
Actually, I think we've already done a show that it's determined that that's a normal size hat.
Yes, that is a normal size hat.
It just looks tiny.
And now people who have not seen me on film before are imagining this pinhead character with a little airplane spinner on top. Thanks a lot.
It looks like a teacup on a hot air balloon.
Oh, man.
I love radio.
Why do I call this man my friend? I don't know.
So where do we go from here?
Well, I was going to say that you noticed in the documentary that when they went to these conventions, they interviewed almost hands down everyone they interviewed mentioned how they had nowhere else to go. They felt like they were alone in the world. And then this is what they latched onto. They found something, and then they came and then they interviewed. Yeah.
I mean, it could be worse. Worse things to latch onto.
Right. No. Right. Yeah.
Well, maybe we should go to. Maybe that's what TEET should go to a flat Earth convention.
No, thank you.
I would not be opposed
to
that.
I would think it would be a blast.
I'm going to convince her to be my +1 if we do ever make it out there. I'll get her to come. Mounts.
It's a company trip. We can write it off.
I think you're right that a lot of people find, and we touched on it before, but a lot of people do find a sense of belonging, and also with some conspiracies. Like when I was into this like liberty movement, just thinking that America had gone like way off course, and there was some conspiratorial elements happening, and there are always to a certain extent, in anything as big as this country, there's going to be conspiratorial elements involved. However, there can be a point at which researching the conspiracy and really looking into it and really being a truth seeker in the most appropriate sense of the word, where you do actually learn more and become smarter. Listen, I'll give you, for example, when I was listening to Alex Jones on a semi-regular basis before I used my own intellect and logical skills to say, okay, this guy really is a charlatan and he's full of shit in a lot of ways. I learned more about the Constitution of the U.S. through researching things that Alex Jones talked about than anything I ever learned in history class or, whether that was high school or college. So there can be good aspects to this too, but you can't let yourself be swept up in it to the point where all my opinions have to be defined by that person that we talked about earlier, that face, that presenter, or that the tenets of this ideology that I've chosen to follow are now going to be my answer to every question. Instead of me thinking about your question and formulating an answer, I'm just going to recite. I noticed with Johnny, the pseudoscience, that was reciting. He was reciting something that is a stock answer for those guys. When you get that far into conspiracies, brother, you're on the wrong track. And you're pretty far down it.
That's when it's a cult, when you start reading a script and everybody's on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
I got a good laugh. I checked out the Flat Earth Society conference, and the last one they had was in 2019. But they were planning a cruise to find the world's edge, 2020. The only problem was that all the cruise ships sailed in the nautical charts are designed with the fact in mind that the Earth is round, so they couldn't set up.
Couldn't charter a boat.
They couldn't
go
charter
find the end of the Earth. That's tough.
Wow.
Can you imagine being like on the other end of that conversation, like a cruise ship director? Like, yeah, we got 10,000 people that want to take a cruise, and they're like, oh, well, all right, well, we can do like a custom trip, and they're like, well, where do you want to go? Like, well, we want to find the end of the Earth.
Here's your show, Jeff. You get Mount to call them up and tell them he saw their thing and he runs a cruise line, and it's a Flat Earth Cruise Lines, and he wants to book them.
Okay.
That's gold.
It's like they don't check the LLC documents or anything like that. They just, see, there's there. I can't believe we haven't found you in the past 20 years.
Right. And
we're brand new.
Mount
This is our first day as a cruise line.
I just love that Mark Hopkins refuses to refer to Andy as anything but Mount.
It says right there.
There's a Z on the end of it. Mounts.
You have just decided he's Mount.
There's only one dude there.
Yeah, well.
If it was plural, it would be Mountses.
I gotta say real quick, my favorite thing that flat earthers have to believe is that there's an anti-moon. I was reading up on it that's why the moon's not always out. There's something that blocks the moon for hours, and subsequently an anti-sun also in whatever's up there, since space is fake.
So they don't believe that there's satellites in space, but they believe that there's something that blocks the moon and the sun.
Yes. And I've also discovered that there's multiple sects of flat earthers that believe certain things, as far as like the ice wall. Others believe the dome. Others believe an atmosphere. So that's what makes that whole thing, like, how can there be 30? I mean, I guess religion's the same way, but how can there be 30 different?
But when you hear them talk to each other, then the one guy's like, look, until you can show me some evidence of a curved globe, I'm going to say it's infinite Earth or whatever. It's like, so the very nature of what built your belief system turns on you at some point. And if you live by that sword, you have to die by that sword, which means that eventually the faces of it will be suspected of being double agents. And you're going to get warring sects of belief, because if all you had to do to disbelieve something was to say, show me proof. Well, even in this construct that you've made of a new belief system, somebody can come right in and point to it and say, prove it. Until you can prove it, I won't believe it. It never ends, is what I'm saying.
But if you look at like at the end of the Men in Black movie, where they show that we're just all in a locker and an alien's playing marbles with the universe and everything. Part of me says we could all be a science fair project for a kid somewhere, and we're a C science fair project at best. This is our perception. I don't deny that, because I'm not arrogant enough to say I understand everything. But it's not the argument. It's not the belief. It's not the belief that someone has. It's their presentation of the belief. And where he lost me was when he said nothing could change his mind.
Yeah.
Right.
I held on for the entire ride until that.
Does anybody have anything else to say on Flat Earth, or have we successfully heard the other side respectfully, and also debunked?
I just want to apologize.
The science.
I want to apologize
pseudoscience
to Abby that I made her watch as much of Behind the Curve as I made her watch to be on the show. I do apologize, my dear.
My brain is just a little softer now.
I do want to say, if you go to the flatearthsociety.org, there's 4 tabs. It's a forum. They're linked to the Wikipedia, and then you can buy Flat Earth gear. Shop Flat Earth gear, but they want to make it clear that they were not involved in the documentary Behind the Curve. So
let's get some Flat Earth merch.
Merch.
Give it away. And let us know, if you guys are listening to this and you are a Flat Earth person, let us know if you're brave enough. Please. We were very, like I said, Johnny was a great guest, and very brave for coming on here. And I enjoyed having him. Honestly, I enjoy having the other side. So let us know. Have the discussion with us. But I think we're all in consensus here that it's just like this is like the weakest conspiracy theory that we've touched on so far.
I would say it's very clear that this theory falls flat. I will say, come on.
That was a joke?
Well, it was supposed to be one of those retch-inducing jokes. I will say,
leave the jokes to us on PIP, all right?
Well, that's why you don't have me on there. You sons of bitches. Here, I thought you thought I was an entertaining, funny guy, and you're like, leave Sterner off that fucking thing.
We tried what, 3 times? Come on.
I know. Well, I did want to say one nice thing. The guy on the documentary Behind the Curve, Chris Pontius, made some really cool fucking flat Earth globes with like the artificial light sky and stuff. In spite of what it represented, they were beautiful pieces of art. I will say that.
There we go. There's a positive. So let's wrap it up there. I want to thank our guests. Thank Johnny Lust from Three Blind Mice. I want to thank Mark Hopkins from Philly Search and Rescue. You do amazing work, my friend. What's that? Oh, I should say that?
Yeah, you already did.
I can cut it out.
No, don't worry about it.
We've mentioned what you do on this show before.
Yeah, but not in this context. This was a little bit of the tinfoil hat episode. I'm going to think of it in my head. And I'm just on here as a dude that's trying not to get dumber.
We're with Mark Hopkins. He's a greeter at your local Walmart.